We here at the Sports History Network proudly partner with 26 podcasts, all revolving around the history of sports. But did you know that many of our hosts were sports history authors way before they started their shows? It's true. We've got Joe Ziemba, host of When Football Was Football, Joe Zagurski, host of Pro Football in the 1970s, Mark Morthier, host of Yesterday's Sports, Tommy Phillips, host of Lombardi Memories, and Scott Adamson, co-host of From the 55-Yard Line. All these authors have many books for you to choose from. To check them out, go to our website at sportshistorynetwork.com/sportshistorybooks. Pick up your copy today. Soundtrack provided by Kevin MacLeod of filmmusic.io.
I can tell you one thing as a football official you don't want to happen is the massive piles up of humanity trying to figure out where the ball was. But one point in time in football rules, it was encouraged because that was the way you stopped a runner. We have author and historian Timothy P. Brown on to explain it from one of his tidbits of football archaeology coming up in just a moment.
This is the Pigskin Daily History Dispatch, a podcast that covers the anniversaries of American football events throughout history on a day-to-day basis. Your host, Darren Hayes, is podcasting from America's North Shore to bring you the memories of the gridiron, one day at a time. So as we come out of the tunnel of the Sports History Network, let's take the field and go no huddle through the portal of positive gridiron history with pigskindispatch.com.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hello, my football friends. This is Darren Hayes of pigskindispatch.com. Welcome back to the Pig Pen, your portal to positive football history. And we are going to try something new here. We're going to have a visit with one of our guests that we've had on quite a bit on the program, Timothy Brown, the historian and author of some great books and a great website, Football Archaeology, and we're going to go and visit his gridiron expedition of the football archaeology and some of his interesting things that he's talking about. Timothy Brown, welcome back to the Pig Pen.
Hey, thank you, Darren. I appreciate the chance to be back. Chat again.
You have some really great things coming out each day for those like myself that have subscribed and are getting your emails. Maybe you could talk a little bit about what you're doing each day and that for people that subscribe through footballarchaeology.com.
Yeah, thanks. So, over the past 3-4 years, I had a different website and I published what I consider long form articles, which are, 5 to 10 minute reads. And now I've switched it over and created a new site called Football Archaeology. So I'm still doing that, still writing the long form kinds of articles, but I'm also writing what I call today's tidbit. And those are just little, basically takes you 30 seconds to read the thing. Typically it's going to have an image or two associated with it that, there's just so many elements of the football history that it really helps to have an image or a diagram to help illustrate the point that you're trying to make. And so I spend a fair amount of time. I spend not as much time looking for the images as I do for the information, but I certainly spend a fair amount of time just on images themselves. And so hopefully, I think people enjoy the images sometimes as much as the information that comes along with it. So basically, as in the past, whenever I publish anything, it's out there on footballarchaeology.com. If you subscribe, you'll get a newsletter with the same information sent to your inbox, as soon as I publish it. But I also put it out on Twitter and on Facebook under the Football Archaeology name. So whatever suits your method of consuming information, have at it.
Definitely, you can tell your research that you put into by studying the photographs is definitely apparent because it's very interesting. And, picture's worth 1,000 words and you sum it up with another 100 or so after it. And they're always very interesting and informative. So I encourage those out there listening to check out Football Archaeology and subscribe because it's definitely interesting. Now, one that really caught my eye a couple months ago, you had one on when piling on was legal. And I was wondering if maybe you could talk to that little tidbit that you had a few months ago.
Yeah. So, the picture I had there was, I think it was an Army-Navy game, but there was just this massive pile in the middle of the field. It looked like, all 22 players were on top of the ball. And so I use that just to make the point that, football originally, the rules of when we had a dead ball or when the man was down differed. And so, originally, when the tackler brought the man down, the tackler was to yell held, HELD, and the ball carrier would yell down, and that's when people would release and get up, and then they'd move to the next scrimmage and snap. And so really it's kind of funny that held concept and the down concept still carries over today. It's just performed differently. So once and that's kind of the way it was for the first 15 years of football. And then in the late 1880s, the English developed a whistle, a pea whistle that was loud enough to be heard by everybody. And so football and other sports started using the whistle to stop action. And that's when the referee really became the judge of when the ball was down or the man was down. And he blew the whistle to stop everything. But even then, crawling continued to be allowed. And so a man could be brought down by a tackler. And if he kept crawling and kept making what we would now call forward progress, the referee wouldn't blow the whistle. So, he had to be down and held. Problem, of course, is that meant people started piling on, and there were, was a dangerous element to the sport. And so with all the rule changes from in 1906 to 1912, 1910 was the year where they basically instituted a rule that said the man is down once any part of the body other than the hands and feet touched the ground. But the rule also required that the man had to be in the grasp of the tackler. So again, he had to be down and held or in the grasp. And then that stayed in place for like 32 years or so. And then the NCAA instituted a rule that said they got rid of the in the grasp rule. So that's kind of the basis of where, the difference between college and NFL now, where if a ball carrier in the NFL slips and falls, nobody touches him, he can get up and run. Whereas in the college, when he's down, he's down. And so the NFL, which was following the college rules in 32, basically said, we're not going to follow that. And then when they created their own rule book in 33, they just kept on with that, they wrote it into the rules that the man had to be in the grasp in order to be considered down. And then they finally changed that in 56. And that's when, more or less the current NFL rule of a man had to be down by contact in order to be considered down. So still, some part of the body besides the hands and feet touching the ground and down by contact. And so that's kind of the situation we're in fundamentally today.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great explanation of the evolution of that concept of, the forward progress and a man being tackled and the down ending, takes us right into today. So that's really interesting. And thank goodness, I'm going to put my officiating gear on here and say, thank goodness it didn't go by the runners having to say held or down, because runners are not the most honest people when it comes to that. I can tell you as an official.
Yes, but back in the day, it was a game of honor. So
yeah, I'm sure it was. But I've read something once upon a time. The piling on made me think of this. Now, back before they had whistles, a lot of the people that were officiating the game had almost like a stick or like a nightstick type of thing, and I've heard that they would whack a couple players to tell them to get off the pile and stuff. Have you ever read anything about that?
Well, I don't think I've come across anything indicating that they would whack the players, but the linesmen for quite a while carried a stick around with them. So before they had chains, the linesmen often had some kind of a stick, or they in the rules they called it an iron rod. But it was they kind of plant it in the ground to indicate where that down started, and then they throw like a handkerchief to indicate where they had to get to gain 5 yards. And there's I've got a bunch of images into 1930s or so of the linesmen, the head linesmen carrying a stick on the field. And that's, a lot of them, some of them had the down box, the square box that showed the down on it. Some carried that thing around the field. But eventually that whole process got moved off the field to an assistant, linesman.
All right. Well, but Tim, I certainly thank you for explaining that and showing us a little bit of football history that turned into something that's pretty important to the game today. And we're going to do this every week. We'll do this for a while here and entertain our listeners here and expose them to football archaeology too. Maybe once again, you could tell us where people could subscribe to Football Archaeology to get the daily subscriptions, and maybe your social handles if they would like to accept them that way.
Yeah. So it's just www.footballarchaeology.com. And, I think if you just type in those two words, you'll find me through Google, pretty quickly. My Twitter name is Football Archaeology, but my @ sign thing is @FOFS. And then on Facebook, I'm not even sure what my Facebook name is. Well, it's under Timothy P. Brown, but the site itself is called Football Archaeology.
We'll make it real easy, folks. If you want to go to this podcast, the show notes, we'll have all those links in there that you can go to anywhere where Tim is, so you can find him. So, Tim, thanks again, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Thanks, Darren.
That's all the football history we have today, folks. Join us back tomorrow for more of your football history. We invite you to check out our website, pigskindispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. Pigskindispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. Special thanks to the talents of Mike and Gene Monroe, as well as Jason Neff for letting us use their music during our podcast.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
It was just another ordinary day in the offices of the Pittsburgh Guardian newspaper circa 1924. But for Marla Delft, assistant editor, everything was about to change. For she was about to discover the awesome attractiveness of Row 1 brand retro sports paraphernalia items thanks to Orville Mulligan, sports writer.
And there it is.
Wow, Orville, that's really the bee's knees.
Isn't it just? A poster-sized replica of the actual 1909 World Series program cover.
I can see that. But where did you get it? And where'd you get it framed?
I ordered it from the Row 1 website, where over 6,000 items of sports memorabilia from the 1880s to the 1990s are available for reproduction, in multiple sizes and in several different materials, with over a dozen styles of frame to choose from for prints like this.
Well, I'm sure Mr. Delft would love to put up more of these in the office. But I'm equally as sure they're beyond this newspaper's budget.
Not at all, my dear Marla. See for yourself. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com/row1.
sportshistorynetwork.com/row1. Oh my, these are good prices. Oh, and look at this stuff. Oklahoma-Nebraska football, college basketball art, Michael Jordan items.
And so
retro
it was that
sports
Marla Delft
advertisement
discovered the
classics.
splendiferous magic of Row 1 sports memorabilia, arts, and prints. You can too by visiting sportshistorynetwork.com/row1. That's ROW1 today for access to the full Row 1 catalog of gallery prints and gifts like t-shirts, long-sleeve shirts, telephone cases, coffee mugs, blankets, pillows, towels, and even shower curtains. Act today for a 15% discount off all prints with coupon code SHN15 and 20% off all other items with coupon code SHN20 at checkout. And keep your dial locked to the Sports History Network for the exciting chronicles of the 1920 sports world in Orville Mulligan, sports writer. Coming soon.